Hello everyone, my name is Cthulhu Girl. Today we will start a new series for Urtuk the Desolation, a turn-based strategy game with a procedurally generated campaign. This episode will begin the campaign and try out a few battles to grow our party. This series will be largely blind. I played around with the game a bit to understand the mechanics enough to not get everyone killed in the first 5 episodes, but no promises after that. We'll start off by preparing our starting party. We have Urtuk and his 2 companions, a guardian and a berserker. We can choose 3 mutator items to bring with them, of which we have a number of options. I won't go through them all now, as we'll see these items during our playthrough, and without having seen combat, their stats won't make a lot of sense. However, I do want to pick one item for each character, and that will be based on their classes. There are a number of different classes we can choose from, but the default is always Urtuk as a priest, and then Guardian and Berserker companions. We'll be going with the default classes, meaning we'll have 3 melee characters with Priest as support, Guardian as tank, and Berserker focused on damage. To help them out, we'll take the Bleeding Criticals mutator for the Berserker, the Monster Heart for the Guardian, and Mind of a Cleric for Urtuk, our priest. We will also be playing on Adventure difficulty and using Iron Man mode. Since I played around with the game a bit already, this save file will be aptly named Attempt 2. After our introduction to Urtuk's background, we'll start into our tutorial fight. Our liberator Eldrick is badly wounded, and although it doesn't have any effect, we're going to try to keep him alive for the duration of the fight. He starts off by showing us how the aptly named dead zones work, immediately eliminating the Sanatorium Spear Guard. Our first turn will be with Urtuk. The turn order is listed on the left side of the screen, so we can see that all 3 of our characters will act before the enemy. We'll move Urtuk in range and cast Aegis on Elric. This will negate the next non-trivial damage he takes and keep him alive through the enemy's turn. Casting spells with a priest cost a percentage of his maximum health. However, priests gain strong regeneration for 2 turns after any enemy dies. We'll also move our Berserker Desarge and Guardian Pelen up, swapping Pelen with Eldrick to preserve the Aegis charge as long as possible. During the enemy's turn, we'll also notice the bottom right battle log quickly lists a Sanatorium Archer that's not accounted for in the turn order. If we look at the ledge above us, we can see a small bit of this enemy merged with the terrain. I'm pretty sure this is not a normal game mechanic and is here for story reasons to kill off Eldrick, but ideally, through our vigilance, we'll be able to protect him. We'll continue to move up and attack the enemy blocking our exit. Here we'll also see Desarge's Berserker Duelist skill. This causes him to always attack twice at the cost of the enemy getting a hit back, so he takes some damage, but we clear the way. The Sanatorium Archer shows himself now and takes a shot at one of our characters on the left, but due to the terrain, he hits the ground. We'll move Desarge and Pelen up, but hold Urtuk back with Eldrick in case we need to cast another charge of Aegis. And it looks like we'll need that, as the archer moves up and lands a shot on Eldrick, consuming the current charge of Aegis so he takes no damage. Due to the elevation difference, Urtuk cannot attack back, so he will spend more health to put another charge of Aegis on Eldrick. After shuffling up further, the archer takes another shot and consumes the recent charge of Aegis on Eldrick. To take the archer out, we'll have to shuffle up this one wide path, and with my impatience earlier, I'd gotten Pelen stuck behind Desarge, so he'll have to wait for now. Urtuk, on the other hand, cannot cast another charge of Aegis on Eldrick, or the cost will kill him. However, Eldrick has a good amount of armor and could potentially survive one shot on his own. Since there's not much else we can do to protect him, and he's about to take a turn and move, we'll most likely have to let him take a hit this turn and hope he lives. Eldrick moves on to the escape tiles, and potentially we could bring everyone back down, leave the archer alone, and try to escape. However, I don't trust Eldrick to stay put, and I like experience, so we're going to go up after the archer. The archer has enough damage to kill Eldrick this turn if he lands a shot, and Urtuk doesn't have any more health regen to be able to cast Aegis, so the best we can do is stand in the way and hope the archer hits us instead of Eldrick if he tries to take a shot. However, Eldrick has better plans, and he joins Pelen in heading up the narrow path to the archer, effectively taking cover in the deep terrain. Desarge can also now make it up in melee range of the archer, almost taking him out in one turn. From there, we'll skip Urtuk's turn and let Pelen take the final attack and claim victory, Eldrick still barely alive in the background. Having completed the tutorial battle, we now get introduced to the overarching story of the game. As a result of the sanatorium's work, Urtuk has a dreadful mutation, and to look for a cure we'll need to take over villages. Here in the Badlands, those will be run by scavengers, who are gangs of bandits and thugs. It also mentions medicine, which is necessary to heal anyone that goes down in battle. Going down again before a prior injury is healed will result in permanent death. With that, we start out with only a small corner of the large map visible. Nearby us are 2 easy difficulty battles where we can assist some potential allies. We're going to head to the east to assist Bobrisky the Hunter, in hopes that he's still alive and willing to join us if we keep him that way. When we arrive, he's alive but injured, so our first real fight will be rescuing him. To get started, we'll check out the map. There are escape tiles in the top left, our ally is close to us marked in blue, and we see 3 enemies marked in red. We have to start our party in the bottom right on any of the white tiles. Given how close our enemies are, we'll try to sneak along the bottom of the map toward our ally. Bobrisky will warn us at the start of the battle that he currently can't move, also that the enemies currently won't do anything unless we get close to them. We'll quickly shuffle along the bottom, watch the enemies skip their turns, and Desarge will move up to Bobrisky and automatically patch him up. Now that Bebryce can move, we're directed to head for the exit squares. If we want to avoid the enemies, that would mean moving to the bottom left and navigating some mud. Mud and similar terrain will slow us down and leave us vulnerable to attack, a bad place to be if the enemies were to suddenly attack us. Alternatively, we could pass over some spikes. These are different than the dead zones and simply do damage when walked over or stood upon. However, I'm thinking of a different approach. Despite Bebryce's injuries, we do outnumber the enemies, and I still like experience. There's a tall outcropping to our northeast that we could put Bebryce on to keep him out of range of melee. So we're going to regroup and head in that direction, keeping Desolation and Pelen out in front. As Pelen moves up, we'll see one of the enemies wake up and move toward us. We'll now get to see Bebryce in action, taking a shot over Pelen's head and gaining extra damage against monsters from a personal trait. We then see the second enemy, a beast rhino, move up and charge Pelen, whose armor absorbs a good amount of the damage. We'll then move up with Urtuk and use his lifesteal strike buff on Bebryce. This will cost Urtuk some health, but let Bebryce regain health by doing damage. We'll then use Desolation to do most of the beast rhino's health and let Pelen finish it off, giving Urtuk 2 turns of feast regeneration to get back the health he used to buff Bebryce. Despite gaining damage and regen from his ally going down, the enemy beast Carwall runs off to the right. We can chase after him with Bebryce, but can't quite gain the elevation for a clear shot, and our arrow hits the terrain. Instead, we'll move up with Desolation and duel the beast, resulting in another kill. This leaves only one more enemy on the map, another beast rhino near the exit. After some dialogue from Bebryce, the remaining enemies will move to attack him. Since there's only one left, we're in pretty good shape to deal with it, but if we had instead gone through the mud or spikes in the bottom left and tried to sneak our way to the exit, we now have all 3 enemies aggroed on us at once. We can also make use of Bebryce's light foot trait, which allows him to continue moving after swapping places with an ally. While moving up to the beast rhino, we want to be careful of positioning. Remember that the previous beast rhino we fought used a charged attack. Bebryce is still injured and would permanently die if he goes down, and getting hit by a charge attack sounds like a possible way to end up pushed into a dead zone. We'll then move up Desolation and Pelen, with Bebryce supporting from the background. As a small note, the terrain Bebryce is standing in helps protect from range attacks, although the beast rhino we have remaining is melee only. We also see that we were wise to be wary of the beast rhino's attacks, as its charge attack pushes Pelen back 1 hex. From there, we're able to clean up with our support and extra damage from Bebryce and typical duel from Desolation. After the battle, Bebryce agrees to join us, growing our party to 4 members and gaining our first range character. We also gain 7 trillium, which is a currency, and 42 life essence, which allows us to extract the traits of our enemies into equipable mutator items. Flesh Eater, a trait of the beast Karwala, is a damage and regen buff after an ally goes down. Pushing criticals, a trait of the beast Rhinos, allows critical hits to push enemies and deal extra damage, but can only be used with certain equipment. There's also leeching criticals to gain life steal off a critical attack, and finally Sharp Eyes, which allows criticals a chance to pierce armor. In the long term, this will allow us to absorb the traits of our enemies, taking on their strongest and most useful traits to use against them. We didn't have the life essence to extract a mutator after our first battle, but we do still have the mutators we selected when we started the game. These were Bleeding Criticals, Mind of a Cleric, and Monster Heart. Now that we've seen some combat, it will make more sense how we equip them. First off, we have a special mutator item that changes a character's focus ability. We'll talk about focus abilities later once our characters are high enough level to use them. We'll also give Pelen the Monster Heart we brought for him, which gives a straight health increase. As our tank, he should find this pretty useful. Now, we were originally going to give Urtuk the Mind of a Cleric, but given that the concentration bonus is helpful for focus abilities, we'll preemptively give it to Bobrysk, whose focus ability will allow us to control critical hits once unlocked. The bleeding criticals will then go to Desarge, as planned. Now that we're looking at the character's stats, you'll probably notice that there's no stat for crit chance, despite how much criticals have been mentioned so far. That's because hit chance and crit chance are not innate stats, but rather influenced by the arrangement of the characters, such as cover from terrain, as we've already seen. For our next fight, we'll aim to show off one of these critical hits. Taking a look at the map, the only location of interest we can currently reach is to run to the aid of Porhito the Javeliner. Getting a Javeliner to join us would gain us another ranged unit, so I'll head out to rescue him and the other soldiers. As it turns out, Bjortio is alone by the time we find him, cornered between spikes and mud by 3 scavengers. The scavengers are composed of 1 axe-wielding melee unit and 2 enemy javeliners. We'll set up Pelen and Bobrysk to handle the axe-wielder, while Desarge goes after the squishier javeliners. As a hunter, Bobrysk has the ability to throw out a few bear traps each battle. These do no damage, but immobilize enemy units for a few turns. Since the bounty hunter will most likely go for Pelen right in front of him, we'll throw the trap there to immobilize him so we can move Pelen up to the javeliners if needed. However, we'll take fire at the javeliners instead of the bounty hunter, because their range makes them harder to control if they start focus firing one of our party members down. Now that we've attacked the scavengers, they'll see us as enemies and come after us as well. Before then, we can use the rest of our characters' turns to get some damage in. The tall grass Urtuk is standing in works the same as the plants we saw in the cave when we rescued Bobrysk, namely that they reduce incoming range damage. After Desarge takes out the first javeliner, we send Pelen after the second, at the risk of the bounty hunter following him and avoiding the bear trap. Since Pelen isn't in a position to get pushed into the dead zone pit nearby, and he's our tank, this isn't too much of a concern. If the bounty hunter does go for the exposed Bobrysk, the trap should immobilize him before he gets there. Now that the bounty hunter is immobilized, Bobrysk can freely attack him without a melee frontline to protect him. We'll then send Pelen after the javeliner. He could go for a basic attack to do a good chunk of health, but more effective is to use Pelen's bash ability. Previously, we've seen Eldrick in the first battle use this to push the Spear Sanatorium Guard into a dead zone, and we'll use it to similar effectiveness, bringing the enemies down to only the immobilized bounty hunter. This gives us the perfect opportunity to show off how criticals work in this game. By putting Urtuk and Desarge in flanking positions, both get an automatic critical hit. This applies to both attacks from Desarge's Berserker Duelist trait, and because we gave him the Bleeding Criticals Mutator item, these attacks will bleed the Bounty Hunter for a percentage of his maximum health, granting us victory within 2 turns. Perhaps very impressed by our performance, Boritio offers to join us, increasing our party to 5. We also gain enough life essence from this battle to be able to extract a mutator from an enemy. The mutator we are absolutely going for here is range support. A ranged unit with this equipped can automatically provide supporting fire when any of our melee units attack an enemy they can freely hit. We also pick up a new sword we can give to Pelen to upgrade his damage. And, after some debate, we'll give the range support mutator to Bebryce, though ideally we'll get a range support mutator for both of them. One thing to note is that this mutator item is lower level than the ones we started with, so it causes a maximum health decrease when equipped. We can also see that Desarge leveled up, allowing us to allocate 3 skill points for him. Each unit gains separate experience, so Desarge, having killed the most units so far, is leveling up first. To keep him killing units, we'll increase his agility so his turn comes up again sooner, and his strength to increase his damage. Before we wrap up this episode, a quick look at the map shows our points of interest for next time. We still have the retreating soldiers we could defend to the west, or a new wave-style defense of villagers to the north. Also of note are 2 flags at the southeast of our vision, likely marking villages we could capture. We've now completed our first episode of Urtuk the Desolation. We've beaten 3 easy battles, grown our party to 5 members, and started exploring the Badlands. Next time, we'll see if we can head in search of our first village and start our quest for Urtuk's cure. Remember to leave any feedback in the comments, like the video if you liked it, and subscribe for the next episode. This has been Cthulhu Girl, and stay out of the dead zones, everyone.